Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. And what a show it's going to be tonight. Sit back, grab that popcorn or coffee or whatever it is that you do when you're watching one of these streams. Hopefully you're in a good space. I know we certainly are this evening, as there is just so much to go through, so much to demonstrate. It feels like it's been ages since we last did a stream. So if volumes are bad or if things are crazy or whatever, just let me know in the comments, because I can see all the comments, and it's awesome to see so many of you here already in preparation for the stream. Now, as usual, we're starting with the Battlemap editor of DungeonFog. Lots going on there. Some very, very interesting things. Tonight we're going to be showing you some cool things. We're talking asset management. We're talking new assets and a pretty awesome announcement if you haven't seen it already. So that's what's coming up in Battlemap Maker tonight as we go behind the scenes. As usual, I am joined by the awesome, the fabulous, the amazing, the absolutely crazy CEO of DungeonFog. But just before that, a reminder, please use the word question in front of your question, because yes, you get to ask questions and we want those questions. Bring them, give them to us. Type them in chat, type in question in front of that. Now, if you are watching on YouTube or on Twitch, I believe that the magic of stream bots is sharing commentary across one another. So don't get confused if you're watching and there's some comments from people you don't know about. They're on a different platform, so that's where that's coming from. And as usual, we have our amazing moderators in chat who will be scanning and looking for people to ban, because that's what moderators do, right? They ban things. Anyway, enough from me. Let's get Till in here. Till, thank you for joining us. Welcome, Till.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back. It's been a long summer, and now we're here. Mapping it out is back on track. I'm really glad.
Absolutely, absolutely. So hopefully everyone heard what Till was saying there, and he wasn't too loud or too soft or anything like those lines. And yes, so Till, how are things going in the DungeonFog studios?
Quite well. I mean, we survived the summer. It was one of the hottest in Austria. So, yeah, there's so much going on. I tried. It was really hard to unpack everything and put it in this stream schedule, because, like, we're going to see tonight how many things have happened over the summer, and I'm super excited to talk about that in the near future and show you. But generally speaking, everyone's more or less well, happy, and working thoroughly on updates.
There has been a little disruption that we will be talking about later on with some of the team members, but I think if you watch the news, you know what's going on there, and we will be talking about that. But it's fantastic to hear that the rest of you are doing so well, and we're super, super excited to see what's come out of summer as we move into autumn or the fall, whatever you call it. In the UK, it's freezing. Now, let's go into our news. Are you ready for some music?
I am.
Here we go.
Bum, 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 bum. It's news.
Oh my, these things get worse and worse and worse every time. I love them. Absolutely love them. The you can't say the CD or the LP is coming out anymore. The MP3 will be on Spotify towards the end of Christmas, so you can pick that up and take that home to your family. Now, Till, you and the teams have been working hard, and one of the things that we always like to look at to begin with is this slide here behind me, which is our Battlemap progress. Where are we and what's going on? Talk to us about that.
So I reworked the slide for today a little bit, because as you might see on the slide, for us the year is coming to an end, and now we have to sit down and evaluate what are we able to do this year and what is going to be done next year. And in 2022, I think I'm pretty proud of what we have achieved in terms of the Battlemap progress. So the things that we did for the Battlemap editor this year, which is the paths tool, the marketplace, the asset manager. We've introduced the community hub. We are now, it is already on the green list, although it hasn't been released yet. But we are on the final sprint to release the new asset picker. We have been working on loading performance, and we are releasing another update to that with the next patch. There is a new UI, or at least an improved UI that we did to the interface of the Battlemap editor that we are going to see today as well. We've introduced some first steps into our onboarding system to help new members to learn about all the things that you can do in the Battlemap editor. And then, of course, there are some leftovers that we are confident that we can actually tackle this year, which is the new asset manager. So if you remember, you can upload your own assets to DungeonFog and you can organize them in collections. But the interface is quite outdated, and as is the technology behind that. So we are reworking that, and this is going to start hopefully in October or in November. And we think that we can do at least the first version of the new asset manager by the end of the year. We will see. Asynchronous asset loading is still on our list. We hope we can do that too this year, which means that the assets are being loaded as you request them and not being loaded as bundles, as you might experience it now on the Battlemap editor. And we're still, so this is going to be a continuous progress. We're looking at ways to make better workflows for beginner users versus advanced users in DungeonFog, and make sure that everyone's happy and knows what to do in the software. Unfortunately, that meant that we had to push some things into 2023. And it is, when we were looking, so Andy, Bodhi, and I were sitting together doing the concept planning and the milestone tasking for the V6 renderer, and it actually made sense to do this while we rework the V6 renderer, to put room drawing, window drawing, and light mechanics into the process of updating to V6. So unfortunately, we're not going to see a new way to render walls and rooms, or to render doors and windows this year, but we will do this when we go into the V6 editing. So that's long story short, or long story long. That's what has happened and is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, Paths was revolutionary.
Yeah.
I have to say, Paths, I think, was one of the most amazing things that's been added to DungeonFog since DungeonFog Battlemap Maker, really. I think Paths was really, really cool. Brushes were revolutionary as well, but then how you change the brushes. I mean, so there's been a huge amount of development in the last year, which is fantastic. So yeah, lots of things accomplished.
Also, we have been updating paths with new path assets through the latest asset packs. I know that Forgotten Adventures is working on a huge chunk of paths for their packs. And with the new asset pack, we are now kind of really experimenting with what else can you do with paths. So we're going to look into that tonight. But I feel like paths is a really powerful thing that we haven't even touched to its full potential yet.
Absolutely. Now, Hannes Longner asks, you said the asset manager is done. Did this include localization?
Sorry, I felt like I misspoke a little bit. It's written there as asset manager, but it was it's the asset management, the internal asset management for us and the artists. The asset manager, which allows you to manage your own assets, that's actually on the leftover list. So we haven't touched that yet. But I am still in the progress. If you have watched the last Mapping It Out from July, I said I have to do a lot of tagging and restructuring of all the assets. I'm still in the progress of doing that, but there is also, there are additional keywords for it, and there is a column for localization, which most likely will not be released with the new asset manager per se, but you have the option to rename those stuff in the asset manager, so localize things for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely super cool. Right. So, speaking of assets, can we look at the new asset picker?
Yes, of course. We haven't shown him yet. We've been speaking about it for quite some time, but we haven't shown him yet. So if you give me
Correct.
a countdown, I will switch.
Oh, yes,
Right.
you're going to switch. Let's see what happens with that one.
Okay.
So, folks, we've got a whole bunch of guests coming in tonight, and so the setup is quite tricky, and we may or may not have thought this all the way through. So, yes, get ready to switch, Till, and 3, 2, 1, switch.
I think that works quite nicely.
It worked. I was as surprised as you are. All right.
Hey, Guy, if I can invite you to come over to me a bit. We're not
Sure.
hiding
I
that
will.
way.
I will. For you, I will move mountains and float all the way down here. And then just because I think it's more appropriate, I'm going to shrink down to bigger size down here.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, what we're looking at is at the test service and is being tested or final tested right now. There are still some things that we need to tweak before we can actually release it, but we're pretty far in the progress. You might already see that the interface looks a bit different, but we're going to touch that in a minute. Right now, we want to look at how can you actually pick assets from, you remember the old asset picker, to how does it look right now. When I go to the asset tool, you will, first of all, you will see that there is a new switch that I think is quite cool. It allows you to decide whether or not you want to use the library, your own templates, the asset templates that you've created, or pick from the collections that you have created through the asset manager. But if you want to browse the library, you can click here, and you will see that this whole side now fills up with the library stuff and all the asset packs that are in there. Be aware, this is test server. There's a lot of testing stuff in there as well. So this might look a bit different when it goes live. Picking a specific, let's say, let's go for the subway pack. When I click there, I will then go into the asset picker for the subway system, and here I can see all my assets. And which I find really cool is by right-clicking, I can actually change the zoom level to get a better understanding, or to increase the amount so the number says how many assets should be in a row. If I'm fairly confident that I know what I'm looking for, and I just need kind of a visual cue, I can even ramp that up to 6 assets in a row, which makes them really small. But for me, as someone who knows the assets by using them quite regularly, I'm like, oh yeah, those are French fries. Oh yeah, that's a spilled Coke. So let's see if I was correct. I was. So I think that's pretty cool. The next thing is, of course, we can see we're now in the subway pack, so I can search, let's say, when we went to search subway signs, let's see what happens. So now I get everything that is tagged as subway, which would be the subway signs, the subway chair, the subway closed back, and I can pick from there. I can, of course, use additional filters like pack, searching for a specific pack, searching for a specific artist, filtering by just free assets, premium assets, the ones I've purchased, or the ones that are for commercial use as well. So I can do that. Again, this is still changing a bit. We're looking at better ways to make those filters easier to use, easier to kind of understand and work with. But generally speaking, I think this is quite cool. So now comes the experimental part, because I haven't played around with that yet. Let's go for trees. Let's go out of the subway thing and let's look for tree. The good thing now is, opposed to what we did before, we're not giving you all the folders where a tree is in. We're just giving you all the trees that we could find. and the little symbols show to you whether or not those trees are part of the content collection, the content subscription, or if you scroll down, you will eventually notice that there are little shopping carts, which means they are available through the marketplace, like from Forgotten Adventures or from Caeora or Chipping Grove, or the other artists that are available there. And you can then pick those. So let's see if I can make this work. I haven't done it before, but I should be able to select 3 and now, right, randomize them. There you go. So this is quite, I think this is quite powerful because it is very similar to what we did in DEIOS. And one of the things why we are working with the Battlemap editor and DEIOS together is kind of to streamline the same user experience, because eventually they will grow into one software. But I think this is quite amazing because previously you had to create a collection and randomize the collection by clicking on it. And now it's super simple. As you can see, let me unselect those things. I'm not sure how to do that. Let me just click on one. You can also always see that if it would be tagged, it would already show additional tags here. So here's a quick nav. If you want to go like, oh, wilderness, the wilderness tree is really cool. Let me see what else is in wilderness. I click on that and I will go into the wilderness pack and I will be like, okay, those are all the assets in the wilderness pack. So let's use them. And therefore I think it's quite an intuitive way to browse through things. Another thing I want to show, which I find super useful, I hope you will find that too, is that might be a bit of a click around. Give me a second. I need to make this a bit smaller. Put it here and now expand it. So you can see, as you can see, is I can bring the asset library into a separate window. Now, again, through screen sharing, it's a bit problematic because I have to do everything on one monitor. But think about
so many screens open right now.
Yeah,
yes,
but
we
think about,
can see. It's awesome.
Exactly. Think about how it would look like if you would actually expand it onto a second monitor. Because it works cross-window, which I find just super interesting from a technical perspective, but Andy made the magic work. So as you can see, if I select something in this window, it updates to the editor, which means you can have, if you have a huge second monitor, you can put your whole library onto a second monitor, browse that, and then just go over to your editor and work there. Magic. Is there anything, are there any questions so far? I mean, that's the picker so far.
Till, I think everybody like myself has just been sitting here quietly wishing that we had this right now. It's looking phenomenal, and there were some suggestions in chat in terms of we should be able to make a weighted list of choices, rather, you know, so when we're putting down random props, it puts down more of one and less of the other, and things along those lines. But it's just amazing. It's fantastic to have seen this interplay between DEIOS and Battlemap Maker and how they both kind of feeding one another, and also to have seen this. It really is awesome in terms of how it's going to change how we use our props, and how much easier it's going to do. I mean, paths made outdoor terrain so much easier to generate. Now this multi-select option is going to make it even easier to generate trees or forests, or it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
By the way, it also works for obviously for textures the same way. Like if I go volcanic, apparently
this is going to make choosing your texture so much easier.
Yeah, because
so much easier.
You're like, okay, let me have a better.
Let me see the pattern. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And then you go like, okay, let's do this, and or if I'm not sure, yeah, I can select this and I can say, okay, let's make this the ground floor. It might not apply right now because it is still on the test server and it might need to get fixed. Oh, I did. Sorry. Yeah, of course. I selected the wall and not the floor. So actually, let's do it for the floor. There you go. Yeah, and the idea of extending things to a second window was so strong for us that we also said the new asset manager is going to play into the same direction. So this is always just a quick there's a quick way to access, or if you extend it, you will go into your asset manager, which can operate on a separate window where you can quickly access those assets, but which offers also intuitive ways to regroup, reorganize, multi-select, and drag them into one folder, rename the folder, tag them, localize them, give them another language, whatever. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do then in there. And hopefully, eventually, probably, maybe share it with others where you say, okay, I really like what I did here. I'm going to make this available to others because this is Bob's way of organizing assets. And that is much better than the guys at DungeonFog did. And we're like, okay, that's great. So share it.
Yeah, share it. Now, when we looked at props, there was a brief moment where we could see your collections and things like that. Will they go the same way as the props?
So
your
the templates. This hasn't been fully reworked yet because the template system is. I'm not sure if it's going to be completely reworked from design-wise, but with templates and collections, as you can see, collections is loading up. This is still using the old system. And there we're going to talk about that a bit, I think, later.
Yes.
I'm just going to say we ran into some hiccups with our database, let's say, infrastructure, where we realized that we need to update a few things on the backend first to make this work properly. So those two will most likely be still tapping into an older system until we have reworked our databases and then integrate them properly.
So the big question, Till?
Yes.
When are we going to see this? Because I think everyone agrees this is just super exciting on so many levels.
The important point here is that we are, I think for the first time since we have released anything in regards to the Battlemap editor, I think we are touching a very critical point of how you use the software and also the core of it, which is how do I access props and how do I access textures? So while we're pretty confident that within October we can actually finish all the core work around it, I want to be 100% certain that the way that the search works, the way that the filtering works, the way that you can access assets is intuitive and doesn't lead to confusion. So I would say ideally in October, but there is a slight chance that myself, I'm pushing it back a bit and say, nope, we need to improve the way that the search or the associational brain works, where you say, okay, I'm thinking of trees that are green with leaves. Can I type that in and I find the asset? What if I say I want wilderness trees? Does that mean the wilderness pack and trees in there? So it needs testing. And it might even be to a point where we say we're not releasing it to everyone, but we're doing a kind of a beta testing to some users before we release it to everyone. But yeah, generally speaking, my hope is if everything goes as planned, that it's going to be October or November.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, please, now, we want it now." Now that opt-in beta, I think you would get a lot of volunteers to take that on and have a look. I know I can't wait to get stuck in and have a look and it's always making life easier, which I think is what is so wonderful about the updates that you guys work on, is that it's never an update where you go, didn't really need that. Okay, it's always stuff that just makes the program better and faster and just more awesome. Now, before we go on to the assets that are being added in as part of the new asset pack, let's talk a little bit about FogMS, because that's something that's a thing.
Yeah. Just briefly, we're not going to talk about the user interface too much right now. If you haven't noticed it yet, we have changed the way that the user interface looks by creating those little collapsibles and grouping things differently, which I find quite cool. We're now currently working on which collapsible is open at the beginning. It will remain the way that you left it once you started working with it. So we're saying, okay, there is a step as a beginner where you don't want to see all of those options open, because it will eventually just cause terrible confusion. Even though it is grouped much better than it was with all the lines, the separation lines that we had before, so it looks much cleaner already. But we're going to, so this is what Bodhi and Andy are currently doing, is they're looking at each tool panel and they're deciding what is open at the beginning, how is everything grouped and reorganized to keep it intuitive for new users and practical for advanced users. Okay, so now, sorry, I just wanted to get that out. Okay. Let's talk about FogMS. Should we want to switch back to our other? I can't show anything about FogMS, so we can.
Which is okay. We can switch back if you like.
Yep.
All right, and we were in news. So ready when you are. Ready to switch.
Yep.
3, 2, 1, and switch.
Almost.
Oh, that's my mistake. Everyone look away. Pretend you didn't see that. There we go.
It's fine. There we go. Okay. So FogMS. The FogMS was built, if I remember correctly, last year, when we started to work on the marketplace and find a better way to actually organize and distribute assets through a cloud-based service that we've moved to Amazon. So what we did was we built a complete content management system that deals with all the assets. And you need to keep in mind that because of the way that we do sharing, it is quite a complicated system where you need to, if you clone a map from another user, we need to understand what's the initial asset, how is it used on the map. Now a new user gets access to it, and if he opens the map, he needs to see the same assets. So it is quite, I'm pretty proud of what we did there. However, while we were working on the templates and the collections, we realized that some parts, especially when it comes to loading those assets and in preparation for the asynchronous part, some parts of the infrastructure are not great. And we had two decisions. So either we just do workarounds and patch things around the bumpy parts of the road, or we go back to the infrastructure and change it. Now, if you think about the FogMS being not even a year old, it might be tempting to just work around the bumps, but that means that in 2, 3, 4 years, we have so many workarounds and little code snippets and pieces in there that are just kind of hacking around the problems that we will eventually reach the point where we say, now we have to redo it again. So we made the decision and said, okay, let's slow progression here and let's focus on fixing the infrastructural things before we start hacky workarounds, just to save some time. And that cost us quite a lot of time when Andy and Sylvie were actually working for the search of the asset system, for example. They realized that the way that the editor communicates the search to the FogMS, that's slow, that needs to be changed and tweaked. And for the templates and the collections, the same system or the same problems occurred. So we are now taking, it doesn't affect what we're going to hand out, but it affects us in terms of other things that we wanted to do, where we said, no, before we do any other things, we actually need to clean up and restructure our databases internally. And that's, for example, why we actually pushed some things from this year's schedule into next year, because we want to free the time to actually make it work properly and then have it working properly, hopefully for the next couple of years.
Yeah, it does make sense. It really does make sense. Do you sort of expect, as Battlemap Maker evolves in the future, do you think you're going to have to come back and again kind of revisit the system?
Most likely. I mean, it would be, look, V6 is also something that we realize that if we want to move forward, we will actually have to rework our renderer. And that is partially because technology changes, and new technology means better options. And partially because the requirements change. And you're like, well, we never planned the system to meet those requirements. So now we need to either patch it in or rework it. We're having our 4th anniversary this October. So after 4 years of development, we realized that we need to have a better management system for our assets. And hopefully that will carry us for the next 4 years, maybe 5, before we will realize that, again, requirements have changed, technologies have changed, and we will eventually have to come back and change it. Now, as a web designer, as a previous web designer, this isn't scaring me, because usually I would say even every 3 years, things get reworked. Now that we're thinking in bigger scopes, it's something where I feel like if we're doing FogMS every 3 years, that's too much. So in terms of stability and longevity, we are having something that works for 5 years. I feel like that would be quite good.
Absolutely. Now, just to be clear, it's not that we have lost work. It's just that we've stopped work to update FogMS. Is that correct?
No, we haven't lost work. We had to shift priorities to update FogMS. We just had to reschedule things. But we said, well, we wanted to have the whole asset picker with the templates and the collections finished by August. Now it's end of September and we're still playing around with things. And the reason for that is because we discovered design flaws in the architecture of the FogMS, and we have to fix them and address them.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. So that's FogMS, and it's all very exciting. And the more observant of you may not have noticed that I may have left the sign up as to what the pack is. So it was interesting though, watching people go, oh look, that's what the new thing is. Oh, it's this, it's that, it's the next thing. You were all wrong, I am happy to say. So Till, talk to us about this new asset pack. Where did the inspiration come from for it? Classic Dungeons. Before we reveal what it is, where did the inspiration come from?
Okay. So there are, I would say, 3 things kind of influence that. Number one, I something that we're talking about later made me do classic maps. And I said, well, I want to do classic maps, but I don't really, it's not perfect. Our system cannot do them perfectly. The second thing is we initially, like back in the days, we had this concept where we said, well, we want to do kind of this map style for classic dungeons. And I kind of dig that up and I said, okay, maybe we should start thinking about doing that. And this is kind of a teaser of what we want to do next year with V6 and all the other options that come along with that. And I was playing a lot with the Paths tool, and I was like, you could do so much more in regards to classic dungeons if the Paths tool would get some new asset updates to it. So at the end, I was playing around for my personal need with things. And when I showed it to Bodhi, he was like, oh, is this going to be the next pack? And I was like, you know what? I think we should do it. We should make it the next pack. So I called Tony and I said, Tony, look, this is what we would like to do. Can you help us figure out the best way to make it work? And also have kind of our own style to it.
And so this is what it is.
Yeah.
And here we go. Ta-da!
Okay, so classic dungeon. What we say is a classic dungeon is a way to draw classic black and white maps. With the cross hatching, with textures that are optimized for it, and then with interesting paths, like with interesting shapes that you can do and interesting paths that you can do. So seeing on the picture, you can see those kind of curved grass waves. Those are paths.
Over here, these are paths.
Yes, these are paths.
Yes, this is not a hand-drawn sketch, folks.
No.
This is not a hand-drawn sketch. This is actually DungeonFog. That's what blew me away. I was like, so you did a sketch for Tony? No, this is DungeonFog assets.
Yep. And also, if you look on the other corner, in the upper left, right, it's mirrored. I don't know where it is. This one is a coastline. So this is what you can do to do water coastlines or rivers or something like that. Then you have the swampy grass next to it, which is a brush. You have the hatched, the cross hatches, which again is a brush. And then you have some textures and elements that you can use to fill things up. But when I did a research on classical dungeon maps, I realized that they don't have a ton of different assets. They have symbols representing things like the star for an important shrine or an altar, and a bit of rocks and shrubbery to put it to kind of flavor up grass. But basically, this is a first attempt to do something where you can make this work with special room settings to create black and white rooms. And depending on how the reaction is to it and how many people are going to use it, and we're going to collect feedback. I'm pretty sure we will get feedback through our Discord and other channels. We will then see how much more effort can or should we put into it eventually. But I like it quite a lot. I'm pretty happy with it.
I think it's so awesome that we've kind of gone from pen and paper into the digital world, and then in the digital world trying to go back to pen and paper. But as someone has pointed out, those doors are actually aligned to the grid. I remember when I was drawing on graph paper as a teenager, my doors were always just squares.
When you I'm not sure we can see it on screen. You will see it once it goes live, but this is a hand-drawn grid as well. So
yes,
grid
that's right.
Is actually not our classic DungeonFog dotted line or straight line grid. This is a hand-drawn grid. And we're not going to put that into the Battlemap editor as a grid option, but we're going to give it to you as a brush option. So you can brush over specific areas, the hand-drawn grid style.
Lovely. I think that's great, because then you can choose where you need to put it or not, so where it doesn't conflict, like with the tiles in the chamber itself, that sort of thing. There has been a question, which is actually quite a good question. This is from Lazarus. Is that the yellow-brown canvas? Is that a texture? Is that a brush? Is it what is it?
It's an image. I to enhance that a little bit, I use the background image for that. And we we are changing the way that we use textures. So I'm not sure if it's going to be a huge texture for this one. I just have to sit down and work with it a little bit to see if I can make it work. But it's a parchment texture. I used it as a background image. Like I uploaded a huge prop, put it in the back.
Yeah, that makes sense. But at the same time, I think texture would be fantastic. So we've got a couple props in there. We've got some bushes I can see up there, and hand-drawn bushes and things, and those columns look to be sort of hand-drawn and things. How many assets in total, Till? Offhand.
I don't know. I've no idea. Honestly, it's more than 25, but it might be. I don't know. It might be in the realms of 40, probably.
Wow. Okay. So big update. Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of people super excited about this. I must admit, there's this wonderful sense of you kind of have your beautiful, typical DungeonFog battle map, and that's where the characters' tokens and things go on to for when you're doing your VTTs and that sort of thing. But this kind of stuff is what they get given in game. This is the crayon drawing that the goblin sells them. So there you are. Right, and so you'll see more of those. When does the pack come out, Till?
We're finishing it up, I would say by the end of this week.
That's exciting news. Now, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but you showed it to me, so that means that everyone deserves to know, right? You were also looking at some sort of upgrade to the rooms.
Yeah. Again, this is a two-phase approach. We have integrated a new mechanic for you to quickly draw those black and white rooms, because otherwise you would have to set up inner wall, outer wall, and all that stuff manually, which might be confusing for someone who hasn't used DungeonFog with the advanced mode for rooms. So we said, okay, let's simplify this. There is going to be a new option in there, but this is, honestly speaking, this is just the first step into that direction, because I think the logic step would be that when you create a map, create a new map, you should be asked if you want to create a colored map or if you want to create a black and white map, like a classic map. And then all the tools, the shape tool, the brush tool, the paths tool, the text tool, and so on and so forth, they all adjust and give you some classic presettings. So I didn't want to, we made the pack and we said, okay, let's make it a little bit easier for you to actually work with it. So we've added in a little tweak or a little additional option for you to make the rooms tool work. But thoroughly reworking it would have meant that we might have pushed back the asset pack quite drastically. And no, I didn't want that.
A comment from Damien, the DM. I never thought I could be so excited over such a simple asset style, but yes, it is actually. It's
I know.
Like, yes. Okay, lovely. Till it's time for us to move on to the community hub, which there was much grumbling, and so stand by with your music.
Of course.
In 3, 2, 1.
Aha! Community map! Highlight!
All right. I see there's something missing. Well, that's ironic. Or is it?
And also, I kind of wander off. I don't know why.
You're drifting. You're drifting. All right. So this month's community member, before we announce who the community member is, just remind us how you choose these people.
Okay.
To be in a community.
Yes. So the community spotlight highlights one of our community members on a monthly basis that is contributing with amazing maps. And from the previous members we picked, we have been looking at the community, we've been reviewing the maps, and this is a curated thing that our staff does. Where we sit together and we say, okay, look who submitted which maps when, And do we like them? Do we feel like they are actually helping the community with amazing maps? And we've been going through, we have a long list by now of people where we find like they need to be highlighted. And while we went through that list, we realized that there is one special person who does amazing maps on our tool that we haven't highlighted yet. And so we said, okay, maybe we should do this month, because also we're kind of doing stuff with that person this month that kind of actually plays really good into map making.
Yeah, things are happening. All right, well, this is the community member of the month. And, well, let's just see.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Dear community, I have never seen Guy so hesitant at presenting something. He was like, do you really? Is that necessary? I mean, come on. And I was like, no, you are part of the community and you are sharing amazing maps. So if you haven't seen them yet, please go to Great GM on our community hub and check out the maps that are being shared there. I have a lot of them in my games. And even though you are a friend and you are a moderator of the show and we're working together, I find it a lack that we haven't highlighted how many amazing maps you have done on DungeonFog.
Well, thank you very much. You will find those maps filled with all kinds of errors and bad labeling and things. So, yes. So, yeah, I made a lot of maps available when Till told me this morning. I was like, what? Oh, all right, let's put up some maps and things. And then I realized that a lot of my maps had actually deprecated. So I was like, oh, I can't share those. We've got to update those and that sort of thing. So there are some maps in there that I think are... I put maps there that I use in my games all the time, which are maps that come up. Something that might be of use to you if you're looking for a farm. This was made before the Paths tool, and there is a farm that has pumpkin fields, which took me ages to place all these blasted pumpkins out onto the fields.
Right, that was also, I believe, before the prop collections.
Oh yes, long before the prop collections.
You had placed all of that manually.
That's it. So anyway, so what's quite useful about that, though, is that it's a farmhouse and then it's got stuff underneath it. At least I think that's how the map works. So go and check those out. All right. Now, whilst we're talking about the community space and these maps and things, in the near future, we're going to start to see some warning triangles popping up.
That sounds terrible. That sounds
yes. What are these warning triangles?
Okay. So... We're still Thomas and Herbert are still improving and working on new features for the community hub. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is we are going to group maps by themes, which means that if you like fantasy and sci-fi or fantasy and horror, you can use the community hub to actually filter for those types of maps. Now, the problem is, how do we know if a map is fantasy or horror? We can scan the map for assets in there, but it's you as the creator who actually defines what type that map is, because you could be using horror assets in a fantasy map, and you could say, well, this is mainly fantasy. I just use those assets. You could use sci-fi assets in a fantasy map, and our system might read it as a sci-fi map, but it is purely fantasy. So instead of saying we do some weird automation that kind of tries to interpret what type that map is, if you have maps that are made public, you might see red warning triangles on those maps in your account that says you haven't connected those maps to a theme. And all you need to do is click on the little triangle and pick a theme where you feel like, okay, this map should be fantasy, this map should be horror, this should be modern, this should be sci-fi. And don't break your head about that for now. It's generalized direction, and the outcome would mean that if people are searching for a map like, let's say, a tavern, And their preference, because that is something that the user can do in the community library, is in the community hub, is they can pick preferences. They say, I love, or I'm more interested in fantasy and sci-fi maps, but I don't need horror and modern. So if people are searching for that, for a tavern, your map might then show up earlier than before because you have already given it a theme. And that's all that's.
No, it's lovely.
We'll do much more with it later down the road. So this is a first step into that direction. And we somehow need to reach out to you and make you update your map with themes.
I've also been told in chat that it might not necessarily be a red warning. It might be an orange or a yellow or pink or purple or some other.
On the test server, it's currently a red triangle.
Intimidating. I mean, red certainly catches your attention. Yeah. And then another comment was, once you have themed your map, it's finished. It's done. And you can't go back and rework it. And that would get rid of the it's never finished syndrome that a lot of us have. The map's never finished. There's always still more that you can do and tweak on that. Right. Now, we've spoken about all of that. We've spoken about all of that. When do you think those triangles are going to be implemented, Till? When do you think we're going to start?
I have no idea. I was told that they are now ready to test on the test server, so I have been playing around with them. But there is, it's going to be soon. I'm pretty sure it's before our anniversary hits, so it's going to be in October. But is it going to be early or late? I have no idea.
That's right. Now, if you are wondering what Till keeps talking about, our anniversary and that sort of thing, it's your birthday. Well, it's not your birthday.
No,
it's
not.
DungeonFog's birthday.
4.
Yeah, you're not turning 4.
You actually have to multiply that by 10. No, it's DungeonFog's birthday. So at the end of October, DungeonFog has been out there for 4 years as a released product. So we're celebrating our 4th anniversary in October. We are going to celebrate it, but it's not going to be at the end of October. It's going to be, I think, the first week of November. And there's going to be some live streaming, and we have special guests, and we talk about things. All the announcements will come soon, but I'm just reaching out to guests, talking to them, see who can join, who will be there. And I put together a streaming schedule. It's most likely going to be 2 days with streaming and celebrating, and I hope you all will be there. But all the details will follow in October.
That's right. Absolutely. I think it's lovely. We should do like a competition for everyone to submit their map to celebrate 4 years. Something along those lines. Anyway. All right. So that's happening in October. There's something else that's going to be happening in October as well, which I think is of interest to everyone. Now, if you watch my channel, I announced it on Monday, yesterday. If you are part of the DungeonFog newsletter, and I hope that you all are, it would have dropped yesterday as well as other bits and pieces of social media. And that's something that we are both incredibly excited about.
Yes.
It started as a conversation, I want to say, in January or February.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was somewhere around end of February, March.
That's right.
And it has been spooking in our heads around for that time, and it got more and more and more and more until.
That's right. I remember sitting in a very weak spring sun, trying to write notes and things, and then wandering around castles in Austria, where in the same day it rained, it snowed, there was terrible wind, and then glorious sunshine came out.
Exactly.
Whilst we were at the bottom of Liechtenstein Castle,
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it was. So what better environment, what better locations could you hope for to have given this thing thought and life? And now, hopefully, with your help, we're going to get there. What the hell are we talking about? We are talking about this. It is the new book. That's right. And it's been written by that man there. Till has done a remarkable job in putting it together. And I've been dabbling around, adding in my thoughts and things on this. So it is the creator's guide to epic locations, nature. What's it about, Till?
Okay, so initially I reached out to you and I said, Guy, I would like to do a blog series about cool locations and how you plan them, how you design them, how you actually play around with the narrative of such a location, and how can you make that work. And I remember that you said, well, maybe you should write a little bit about it and send the draft to me, and then I can look at it and maybe we can make it work somehow. So I was feverishly writing stuff together. I think I started with about 25,000 words that I sent to you. And
he sent me a book.
And then you said, wow, okay, this is really good. Thank you very much again for that. But should we make a book out of it? And then so Guy is playing his part very, very low here. It couldn't work without him. But you then came in and you structured it. You made the location list. You said, okay, what locations should we actually talk about? How do we want to do that? What's a good narrative? What's the structure around it? But basically what it is as the name says, it is a guide for people who want to create their own epic locations. So there might be regular locations. They are nice and you can quickly describe them, but there might be locations that are just really outstanding. And what do you need to do to actually create them, flavor them, and sell them to your players? Or if you're writing a book, how do you actually kind of structure such a location from a narrative standpoint to make it stand out and suck in the readers or suck in your players as they are experiencing that location. And
I think the important thing that came out of it, and this is one of the reasons why I said to Till it has to be a book, is because there's almost 3 angles that are being approached at the same time. And I remember we were kind of going, fundamentals, finessing, and we need another F because there's another thing here and there's another thing there. And now, for the love of money, I couldn't remember what the third F is. I mean, we've only written it out 10,000 times. But the best part about the book, I think, is that you're going to be able to take it off the shelf in the middle of one of your games and go, my players, instead of going into the mountains, have now gone into the open plains. What the hell am I going to talk about in terms of the open plains as a location? How do I make this location interesting? It doesn't have to be an epic plain. It could just be a regular plain, but you want to add in some flavors. So the book's going to have short notes for you on how to do stuff on the fly for that plain. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity to plan beforehand and you want to start looking at some maps, you want to start developing something for that area, there's a whole bunch of stuff on that. And my favorite part was, as I was reading what Till was writing, I was doing a lot of fact checking and that sort of thing. I was learning a huge amount of stuff on these natural locations. So what's the difference between a marsh and a bog and a swamp? They're quite big differences. And then when you look at it from a role-playing perspective, from a creating perspective, you go, holy hell, these 3 things could be right next to each other and they would be totally different environments. And this is why. And then the third aspect, and this is the part that I think Till has done so beautifully, is he then shows you how he makes these maps for these areas. So it's not just then you draw a circle and then the circle becomes this, masterpiece of an owl. These are the stages in how I made this map. And that's beautifully broken down. So there's 3 different aspects to each chapter within this book that I think is going to be really, really exciting. So that's going to be dropping on the 11th of October. That's when the Kickstarter launches. So spread the word. I think it's really exciting as a book.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you will love it. I'm pretty sure you will. It was either way, it was such a journey, and I'm super happy to go that route with you guys. So thank you again for being my mentor on this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be a lot of fun. All right. With that said, that brings us to the end of mapping it out for the Battlemap maker.
Yes.
We still have mapping it out for DEIOS, and we've got 2 guests joining us for that one, which does require a little bit of jiggery-pokery in terms of the stream and how we get things going. So we're going to take a very brief break of exactly 60 seconds to stretch your legs, grab something to drink, do something crazy, or, just switch over to something else and have a read, or go I don't know, go read the newsletter. Anyway, whatever it is you're doing, we hope you join us for DEIOS mapping it out, because there's some really cool stuff there. We'll see you in a few moments. As soon as I find the damn link. Where did I put it now? Oh, here we go. Right, we've got it. We'll be back.
What's got you down, Ogre?
It's my dungeon, Gobbler.
What's wrong with it?
It could be so much more, with more stuff.
It can't be that bad. Let me have a look. No, you've got a nice swamp full of snakes and spicks. Ah, snakes and spikes. Very nice.
But, that's it. How am I supposed to attract adventurers with that?
2 words. Dungeon fog.
Dungeon what?
Dungeon fog.
For over 3 years, we have put all our love and determination into making DungeonFog the best Battlemap map-making tool out there. Thanks to you, our amazing community, Game Masters can pick from over 10,000 community-created and shared maps, and can turn them into their own epic dungeons to use and share. None of this would have been possible without you. Thank you. And may our tools always help you to create maps your players will never want to leave unexplored.
So, what do you think, Gobbler?
Well, it certainly is different.
I hope you're ready.
Yes, I am. I hope.
Right. Hello, we're back. That was very brief. Too brief, actually. So, Till,
Yes.
yes, we're here. I haven't even changed the slide yet. Look at that. Tardy. And so
I'm
there
not
we go.
sure if you, sorry to interrupt, I'm not sure if you see me moving because my setup just froze.
I do see you moving.
Okay. I will, in the back end, I will quickly work around things to make sure that, that my computer is reacting. In the
Okay.
meantime, just do the introduction.
All right. Hopefully you won't disappear. Right. So we are talking about Project DEIOS and everything that goes on behind the scenes. We've got 2 guests joining us tonight, which I think is really, really awesome. And they will be answering your questions. So if you have only just joined us, remember to use the word question in caps in front of your question so that I can see it nice and clearly in the chat. And then I will pass it on to our guests. And we will try and answer all the questions that we can. But if we don't, remember, you can always join the discord.gg/DungeonFog Discord server, where you have direct access to many of the members of the DEIOS team themselves. The DungeonFog team will be there to answer questions and things. So that is always an option for you. Now, if you also haven't signed up for the DungeonFog newsletter, I suggest you do by heading on over to the website, and that's www.dungeonfog.com, and you'll find their newsletter there to sign up to. And you get all kinds of monthly updates, as well as that you get a summary of the stream. If not tomorrow, the day after, if you want to just see the highlights of the stream. So there we are. Now, Till, how are we looking? Are things working?
No. So the thing is, I can't for some reason, I can hear you, I can speak to you. By the love of God, cannot close any window, touch anything. I have a frozen screen. I'm not sure how to actually fix that, apart from rebooting my computer. So
right, okay. You can't show anything. You can't do anything. So that is an unfortunate situation for us to be in, because you're also the host of this call. So I can't even get Caeora to join us. And there we go. I've let that one out of the bag.
The only thing we can do, actually, because we have guests, we have things to show, is we have to, well, bite into the sour fruit, and I have to end the call, reboot my computer, and we start streaming in a few minutes. That's the.
All right.
I don't think that we can do anything else, because I can't. By the love of God, I can't do anything. My computer just said nope. Nothing. Oh wait, probably. No.
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 All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and reboot the system, and remember to send me
I'm sorry, guys. We will
new link.
Yeah, we will be back in a few minutes. I have to.
We've had an hour-long stream, so I'm going to keep the stream going, as a matter of fact, while we wait for you to reboot, and we'll just chat amongst ourselves, just me and chat, and nothing else. So here we go, and hopefully Till will get that sorted out in a little bit. And of course, the stream is not a stream without technical issues. Absolutely right, without a doubt. So I do think that something that Till definitely undersold. He doesn't know this, but his Zoom connection is still active, and so until he reboots his computer, I can hear him chatting away in the background. Oh, apparently he's fixed it. This just in, Till actually fixed his computer. Without having to reboot it. I'm getting news now. We're crossing live to Till in his studio, and hopefully everything's still working there. Let's see what's happening. Till, is everything back?
Give me a second. But I think everything is back and everything is working.
Okay, well there you go.
And just to let you know, I fixed it by trying to turn off my computer, which also didn't work, but instead of turning it off, it just went dark, and then I tried it again and it came back, and now it's alive.
Technology. I wonder if your computer had gone into a sort of sleep mode and was just on standby.
I have
perhaps.
no
Who knows? Anyway, that means we can get on with it. So let's see. Where are we here? We're talking about DEIOS. We're talking and answering your questions. And so there you go. Till, are you ready to
I'm here.
get on and get in and get chatting? Right,
Yes.
here we go. So we're talking roadmap for DEIOS.
Exactly.
Where are we? What's going on? Give
Okay.
us the lowdown.
So, similar to what I did with the Battlemap editor, I tried to give you a good update on where we are in regards to the day's progress, and what we achieved in 2022 and what we are going to do with 2023 as we move along. So if you look behind Guy, you will see all the stuff that we have already done. There you go. Which is in dark green, that has already been deployed, that has been updated, so that is available on the auto updater, and you most likely have been already playing around with the blueprint system, the Tectonics 2, the waves, the layers, the export, the copy and paste. You now authenticate to get access, and you have the asset server, which you don't see, but we know, because we can now give you assets as packs through our auto updater. Now in the light green, we can now see what is coming up for this upcoming update, which is rivers and roads, Linux optimization, the new set index thing that we're going to show today, the new outline mode that we're going to show today, and the new assets that we're going to talk about with Caeora today. There are some leftovers for this year where we feel like we hopefully can tackle them. And there is one thing that I've highlighted That is City Map Basics, because we want to start with that. I've always said that after this patch, that the upcoming one, we actually want to dive into the first basics for city map editing, to have that available to you as soon as possible. City map editing is definitely not going to be finished by the end of the year. That's why it's partially in 2023 as well. But it is being, I want to start it this year and then hopefully finish it in the first quarter or the first 2 quarters next year. Which then means that we can come back to world maps and do all the other stuff that is still waiting to be done regarding world maps and systems. Yeah. So that's where we are at the moment, and that is what is happening.
There we go. And I think, again, it is what it is, but what it is I think already pretty damned awesome. And from what you're going to see tonight, I think you're going to realize that we've got some really powerful stuff at our fingertips already, and even more coming up. So, Till, with regards to progress, are you happy with the progress? Given everything that's happened, COVID, war, all this kind of stuff, has that had a major impact on things?
Yes, it did. Everything did. Like, again, keep in mind that in the year 2020, we've lost a lot of time, not only to COVID, but to the fact that we went into, I would say, the wrong direction with the basic build, and our first alpha was a disaster. And we said, okay, let's roll back and start a better approach on it. But then the team put such an amazing year 2021 into redeveloping the editor and starting this new build by, I think, when was it, 2022 at the early first quarter, when we started to release the new build to everyone. And since then we've been thoroughly working and kind of keeping up. It's not the word I'm looking for. Like making progress towards making up to where we want it to be. So given the fact that we have quite the obstacles that we weren't all of them responsible for, I'm super proud of the team and what they have been doing so far. And I'm just impressed with kind of the resolution and the resolve that they have to keep on working, as now things, again, keep in mind we have developers from Russia working on it, as now shit's happening, and they have to deal with a lot of other issues at the moment, and they still put a lot of work and effort and determination into DEIOS. So that makes me just extremely proud.
Absolutely. Till, let's talk about some of these light green things.
Yes.
Because that's what we're talking about tonight. Exactly. Do we have a slide for them? I think we do.
I actually would like to screen share a bit to show stuff. So
Very good. Yeah. Absolutely. You want to screen share? Let's screen share. Let's really put it to the test. All right, I'm ready to screen share when you are.
Give me the countdown.
3, 2, 1, go. Boom. And then I have to just do something here quickly because I'm an idiot. And voila, the trees are now greener than they should be.
Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I want to show is, I think that is quite an important one, actually, because we have been, it helps us a lot when we do map making. It is still a work in progress title. We might change it. It's called Set Index. Now, if you remember,
to be clear, Z index.
Yeah.
Or if you're an American, it's a Z index. In the script, actually wrote set index. and I couldn't work out what the hell set index had to do with it. But now that you say Z index, I'm like, okay. Sorry,
Oh, I got it.
sorry,
Okay.
folks. This is what happens when you stream for so long. And you're my age. You kind of get excited about discovering things such as Z index. All right, sorry. Carry on with Z index.
Don't worry. So just to let me move over here a bit, just to explain what I'm talking about is, as you can see, when you put assets in front or behind something, there is a point when they will eventually come to the front. That is because that what we describe here is the set axis. So if you have a set index that says, okay, where is the asset in relation to the others? It comes quite natural that when you move them, they will eventually move behind a mountain. Now, the problem is if you want to place that lighthouse on top of the mountain, you're screwed because that's not working because of the way that the set axis actually is preventing that from happening. So we have introduced the set index that allows you to select an asset and change, like override that to actually put it on top of a mountain. So now you can select specific assets and put them, and put them somewhere and override the set index. And that is kind of indefinite, which means that if I want to have that tree sitting on top of the lighthouse or be a symbol on the lighthouse, I can actually make that a set index of 2. And now I can move it here and the tree will sit in front of that as well. So there is a manual override that you can now use for specific assets. And they will ignore their positioning and will be brought to the front, which allows us to have dragons circle around mountain ranges. Bring my mountain here. So I think that's quite cool. Okay. And let me put that tree on top of the mountain. There you go. So now there's a tree growing. I keep selecting that. So it is quite powerful to actually do that, to give the final touch and the emphasis on map making and using the set index for that. So let's put the lighthouse here. It's now standing.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
It's a small hack, but it has been we've been dodging around that for some time. It has always been on the backlog, and now we said, okay, let's touch that. It's a good time to take that. Usually those things happen when we are like when we're waiting on someone to finish work, and the developer says, well, I'm kind of waiting, what can I do in between? Then we say, okay, I think it's called a paper cut task, which is something very short that they can take and quickly do. So that was something that we picked. And there's another thing I want to show, which I find somehow, and this wasn't intentional, but it somehow fits perfectly to what we have been showing in the stream about the battle maps. And that is, we have reworked the outline mode. Because we have had the outline mode beforehand, but it was very experimental and not very useful, since it just turned off the color layers and left all the outlines intersect with each other. Now, what you can do now is when you turn them off, you will see that they are actually, and I hope it's not too complicated on the screen to actually grasp what we're looking at. But
No, I think it's coming through.
That those assets are actually being masked or are masking what's behind. And that's not even the coolest thing. The coolest thing is when you go in and you pick your, let's say, color. Let's just pick a color here. And let's make this smaller. Let's make this 5. And you are now brushing. You can see that the color brush actually sits still at the back. Okay, if I do, just to extend the explanation, it still sits at the back. So when I turn back on the outlines, we will see it's still coloring the ground. It's not coloring the line art. It's not overriding the line art. It's sitting on the back. But when I turn that back on, I can actually use that to, I don't know, whatever you can, whatever you, when I showed it to Caeora, the first thing he said was, how small does the brush get? Can I use that to actually colorize my black and white assets? And I was like, well, we need to do some updates to the texture map of the brushes to make them sharper and crisper. But generally speaking, I can go down to, I hope I'm not mistaken, to 1. And now I could actually... Good luck for those of you who want to color the map bit by bit like that, but you could actually do it now. Yeah, that's the new outline mode, and I think it's super powerful because it is, especially with all the new assets that Caeora is going to talk about in the near future, you will see that you can not only create beautifully colored maps, but if you want to have a more of a sketchy approach, you can do the same thing.
Very, very exciting. Very exciting, Till. Yes. Is that all you wanted to demonstrate for us?
That's what I wanted to demonstrate in
for
regards to this. There is more that we want to show eventually. And
okay.
We have a guest for that.
Yes. So I think let's get our guest in. Shall we get our guest in?
Yes. Do you want to switch back first?
Yes, let's do that too. So let me do this before I forget. So there's that. It's going to look weird. Let's switch back. Sorry. In 3, 2, 1. Right. So whilst Till is getting the guest in with him, as a matter of fact, that's right. The guest is actually staying with Till in Austria. I just thought I should take a little moment to explain who the guest is. Now, the guest is one of the designers, and you'll see a slide behind him and Till of what he does, but worked on some very interesting games and for another company that I've done work with as well, so lots of exciting things there. And yes, well, let's just say he's a programmer, and in his free time he likes to program. I mean, go figure. So there we go. Let's get him in, and hopefully he will be sitting next to Till in this next shot here. And there he is with that very complicated slide behind him. Welcome, Ilya Gluschenko. Is that right?
Almost right. Yeah. Hello, guys.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to being on the show for the first time. It's really good to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you here, Ilya.
Well, it's good to be here. What can I tell?
So I'm just going to try and clean up this background a little bit because I think it's a bit messy. So let's just do that for now. So Ilya, how long have you worked with DungeonFog?
Oof, I think it's almost 2 years now, right? It's like a year and 10 months or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Something like that.
Time flies, you know.
Yeah.
There we go. Absolutely. So it does. It really does. It really does fly. And Ilya, you are one of how many developers that that were working in Russia? Till how many developers in total?
So we for some time we have 4 developers, but when the user interface updates were done, Sasha left the company. So it's Nikita, Ilya now, and Andrei, who are or have been working from Russia. But the current situation has changed that a bit.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk a little bit about that, Ilya. With Russia stepping up their campaign in Ukraine, why is it that you're now with Till in Austria?
Well, because I decided to leave. It's actually the second time I decided to leave. The first time I realized that to leave you actually have to have pretty hefty amount of paperwork with you, and yeah, unfortunately, I had to go back and do all of that. Well, that's bureaucracy. I don't like it, but you have to deal with it. Unfortunately.
That's right. And you felt it was just the right time to leave Russia.
Yeah, well, all of this started. We pretty much all left, or like not all, but like decent amount for like the developers. Then we had to sort of go back because everybody suddenly realized that well, in bureaucracy you cannot fight it with with just your without the paperwork, and essentially.
That's right. And it must be quite difficult to just up and leave your country. I mean, I know I've moved around the world quite a lot, but till you were running to the airport on Saturday, to go and fetch Ilya. Just so that you know, folks, they're actually currently in Till's office, which is in Till's house, and I think that just speaks so well to the DungeonFog family.
It does. So the thing is, everyone knew at the beginning of the Ukraine crisis and at the beginning of when things were kind of starting to ramp up in the media, like Andrew, Nikita, and Ilya all started to think about ways to actually react to the situation. And you have to keep in mind that because of the embargoes that are in place, it was also for some time, it was quite interesting to see whether or not our money gets through if we pay our beloved employers. So I think it started in May, probably April, when we started to look at ways of getting you visa and making sure that you can actually get what's the requirements to actually move here to Austria to work. And from that on, you started to, so you left to Georgia initially, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, I was hoping to go for Georgia, but I actually went for Turkey eventually.
Right,
yeah,
you went Turkey. Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I actually went for a matter of fact, I stopped receiving my salary, but like not because still refused to pay me or something. I just said don't pay me. I don't wanna like pay taxes anymore.
Yeah, and or lose a lot of on the money currency conversion. So what we did was we created a deposit, and we're now parking the salary until Ilya can actually properly withdraw it. But from Georgia, you then went back to Russia because you realized that there's a lot of paperwork. Sorry, from Turkey, you moved back to Russia because you knew that there was a lot of paperwork to do, and I think also because you got married.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of my friends actually got married because suddenly the situation changes, and before that, you're thinking, well, maybe, it doesn't really matter, we're in a like sort of there's this modern world, we don't have to do it, or whatever, but then you realize that you have to do it because even if like you were having other plans, you now have to do it, and you have to do it quickly, or otherwise bad things might happen to your better health.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So again, because if you're trying to apply for a visa, it's problematic if you're not married, and it makes life for two people much easier. So you got the tourist visa for Austria in summer, I think in July or August. And you were saying, okay, I think I'm going to visit because checking out the country, making sure that it's nice to be here if you join us working here. But then, unfortunately, someone ruling the country decided to do drafting, which I think ramped up the game quite a lot, right?
Yeah, I think first time, like when the war started, we left because it was just, like we couldn't take it, just emotionally, because it's like such an insane thing to do, like, but then when we came back, you kind of calm down a little bit and you start thinking, and then maybe we were thinking maybe this is not gonna go like away or something, but we were thinking maybe we have some time to plan something properly, like in Russia you can have two foreign passports, so we got the second one just in case, and then we got a visa, we got married, and then we were thinking, well, maybe we should go to Austria, just sort of see what's going on there, because we've been to Turkey, and it's a lovely place, but maybe like we'll find something better in Austria or something like that. But then, what happened, partial mobilization, or, well, it's like just a draft, random draft, and we decided that, what, I think it's time to move.
Yeah. And that's when we just stepped in and said, okay, look, there's no discussion. If you want to get out, we're going to help you. If you need a place to stay, we're going to assist you. So when you took the flight, you weren't able to catch a train directly. You actually had to go like a different route to get out.
Yeah. It's like when this someone certain made his sudden announcement, within like an hour or like 2 hours, every tickets out of pretty much all the tickets out of Russia were either sold out or were so highly priced that it was insane. And we had to develop, it was, and it is still now, like if you want to go to Berlin, like you better have like $10,000, by airplane. So we had one flight from like Belarus to Georgia, and then it got canceled, and like we found some shady driver who took us to the Finnish border, and in the middle of the night, we didn't know like if it's gonna work out, because I just found a guy in a random chat in Telegram, and he says, yeah, well, I have 4 places, you're coming or not? And we're like, yeah, when is gonna happen? From the different town, we had to take a train, and we're leaving at 6 a.m. It's been like 11 in the evening already, and so we had like 7 hours to decide, and we decided, yeah, let's go. And it's pretty,
Yeah, and then from Helsinki, luckily, you got a flight. That's actually, you and Nikita both left on the same. Yeah. Nikita went to an uncle he has in England.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, can we come to Austria? And we said, yeah, of course, sure, just come over. So I picked you up on Saturday, and you spent the weekend with my family. And you now found an Airbnb here. Yeah. So the thing is, what we're saying is, I think it's without a question that we as a company, and more or less we as a DungeonFog family, help if help is needed. So that was absolutely clear for every one of us. And B, it's also something that has taken effect on our development schedule, because there are things that are more important than doing an update. And I'm super happy that Ilya is here now, and he's going to grow slowly accustomed to being here. So your visa is now working for 3 months, and we are going to figure out how it's going to continue from there. But right now, there are things that are simply more important than software development. And still, you did quite an amazing job on the stuff that you've brought with us today.
Well, I tried.
Well, that's absolutely. I mean, yeah, you say, "Oh, I've tried," but I've been hearing reports from Till in terms of what has been done, and we've got some demos as well.
Yes.
And Tectonics, you weren't happy with Tectonics as it was. You then went and did some new stuff, and then you had to invent a whole other thing that had never even been spoken about, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, by the way. So here we go. Are we ready to talk about?
Yes. Give me a second. I just want to point out, by the way, that the whole, like the coastline generation, the height map generation, the color generation, that was all proposed from Ilya to the team. It wasn't that I said we need that. It was that Ilya took what we had And when we had to rework the alpha build, the first alpha build, Ilya approached me and you said, well, why don't we do this? I looked at all the papers I found and I read, and we could actually improve the system. So it is what you're going to see, what you're going to hear, his work.
Yep.
Here we go. All right, shall we switch over?
Yes, let's try that. Oh, wait.
All right.
That's not so easy. If
Yeah, from your side, it's not so easy.
Go.
3, 2, 1, and go for it.
And keep in mind that there might be a green screen effect.
Yes, I am busy turning that off as we speak. Right, you are good to go, and I do beg your pardon, Ilya. I did not mean to sit on your lap. Let me move myself over a little bit. There we go. See what happens. Right, so off you go. Tectonics update. What? Talk to us.
Yeah. I will go first, and then Ilya, you will explain all the details. So first of all, we have shown that previously. You have this when you create a tectonic, like a landmass. You have now. Not sure if you can read it, so I will tell you what's standing there. You have a type. And that could be an island type or a continental type. So if let's say I put the continental type here, then that you get additional options like flatland, mountainous, glacial, fjords, and so on and so forth. So you can pick out of different generation or
types, I think. I don't know.
Generation types. How they are being generated. Presets. Thank you. And also climate options like tropical, dry, temperate, continental, and polar. We have been looking at that beforehand. So the biggest issue that we had and that Ilya has been working on at the moment is we can create that on the fly when you do that. And as you might have realized or seen from the previous build, it's also much faster already. We don't have huge. There's still space for optimization, but from what we've shown last time to what we have today, there is also quite a time improvement there. However, the biggest issue was what happens if you have an existing landmass and you want to add to it. So Ilya, maybe you need to go into details why this actually was a problem initially and what we have to kind of overcome to solve this, while I'm going to now add something to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm gonna try not to go too much into technical details, but essentially, like, while this thing did work, I realized that, we don't have as much flexibility in terms of what we can provide to users essentially. And like, I'm being like a little bit of a perfectionist. I wanted to do it in a little bit different way. Essentially, like the first iteration, we just, I just laid out the groundwork. So like the way that it's constructed, using the Warner diagram and then using the some random generation, but like without proper seeding. But first of all, it wasn't like particularly optimized, the whole generation itself. And then the second thing is that you don't really like have any kind of sensible controls, because essentially in the previous version you just had like a noise essentially, and I tweaked that noise in a sense that it could produce like a landmass that kind of looks okay. But what it allowed us actually to have is that we now have like an interface for it, so we could produce not a noise, but like now it's a height map, and if that height map is actually different, it doesn't have to be like a noise. We can actually use it to generate a landmass that is more realistic or like believable, or in an art style that you are that you want. And that was actually why I was going for the second iteration. And also the shape of the coastline, but that's a minor thing, but I didn't like it as well, because like it was quite jittered. And yeah, well, essentially what we now have is I actually experimented with a lot of stuff. We even tried like tectonic plates, simulation, like for real. Like we did try it. I mean, I tried it. Like it's disabled now because it's incredibly expensive. We might want to. I don't know. We'll think about it. Yeah. But
we might want to bring it back eventually.
But yeah, it's super expensive. But like it was for real. We were moving like the continents, and there was like some small islands and etc. And I wanted to see what we can do with it. And then I realized, this is actually doesn't make a lot of sense to us because if you have tectonic plates and etc., it's cool, but it's really hard to artistically control, because like you generally just generated a bunch of plates and then they're kind of randomly, or not randomly, you can see it, but they collide into each other. But like as an artist, it's really hard to control. So I kind of realized that maybe we can do something better. And by better, I mean like we can tweak our generation of like seeding of the noise and maybe some add some additional details to it, and we can actually produce different types of like terrain, different types of islands shape, different types of coastline shapes. And I found this beautiful library that actually specializes exactly on that. It's a noise, but it's a noise that is very particularly tweaked to generate like landmass types of images, like height maps essentially. And then I kind of introduced it into our already existing framework. And now we have what we have. We have like a bunch of island types, we have a bunch of continent types, and they are all really different, and we can use them. And how it's different from the previous version. In previous version, we just had essentially like a noise map and then the outline generation on it. But now we actually have like a height map information, and even have like a climate zones, and then like and then
no, go on.
Yeah, and then there's a mesh, and there's all this stuff, and we can regenerate it. We can actually do like operation with those height maps. We can actually not with them like the mesh itself, but it's like we can merge two height maps together, or we can subtract from them, or we can do all the different kind of stuff, and we can use this information later to do all kinds of things, to generate basically like biomes, not biomes, but like I call them climate maps, but doesn't matter, how they call them. And yeah, I know. It's just my stream of mind. I can talk hours about it. There's so many things.
I think we're getting that, but we're getting your passion as well, which is fantastic. Yeah. It's really cool. And until you've been doing stuff as Ilya's talking, and
exactly,
and I've got questions coming up and
underline what's happening here. Without getting too much into detail, because I have the opportunity to listen to Ilya going over what we can do, and I'm like, oh my god, that sounds so amazing, but we have to actually release it at some point. There is one thing what we are currently working on, Ilya, and that is actually merging together different climate zones into one landmass. And that's what Ilya, that's what you said, right? To do that, we actually had to introduce some kind of internal climate system into the landmass and into the map to actually understand how those climate zones mesh and blend together, right? So if I want to I've created a polar region up here. Now you're going to see stuff that is not finished, and that is something that we still need to optimize and tweak. So you're going to see artifacts here. But if I want to add a polar climate region here to the northern coastline, I can do that, and it's going to make it, but as you can see, it's not yet blending properly. And we do have concepts about that where we say, okay, we can actually merge them together and blend one climate zone into the other. But unfortunately, again, this should have been something that you've been working for the past 2 weeks. However, there were more important things, and so we have pushed that back a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I think that answers one of the questions that Nicholas Kopp asked. Is it possible to combine the different land masses together? So if you drag that island into your green continent.
Yeah, it is, again, it is to some extent, if you look at the coastline,
yes,
it is actually working, and it's blending together. If you look at the actual intersection between those two different climate zones, temperate models, it is not blending correctly yet. And you already have concepts about that, how you're going to approach that?
Yeah. Well, like first of all, we have to like I have a couple of concepts, but we have to decide, what does it even mean like to blend climates? Because realistically, you cannot go from like a polar region straight into like a desert. This doesn't happen. You have to have like a transition or a gradient. But then again, we're not here to sort of simulate nature. We're here to make maps. And fantasy maps for that matter, where you can actually have like a sand transition into like a polar region because of some magical reason or whatever. So we're basically trying different things with this. What does it mean? And here, like you can see the outline of the bounding box here, and then the outline of this bounding box. It's actually where the transition should happen. And so if you actually this thing from the island on the left, it illustrates quite, I think, clearly that you cannot just slap it on top of each of like one on top of another, because it doesn't. I mean, it kind of works, but not really. You have to sort of have this transition that makes sense, and this blend of the gradient and blend of like the gradient, the blend of the different biomes. And since we have there's like now clear classification of biomes, so there's there's a desert biome, there's a temperate biome, and then I have to somehow figure out what does it mean to transition and how to do it in a manner that is useful.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are basically right now there are kind of the three leading concepts, and we need to prototype them a little bit and test them. The three leading concepts are using like a global universal color code for height and temperature. And we can use that to kind of identify how each pixel is actually rendered based on height and temperature of the region. The second one is just work with the colors and blend colors into each other. We have to test it. Maybe it looks visually good, maybe it doesn't. And the third one is, as you just said, is to have some kind of intermediate zones that identify one climate to the other. And there we can work with Caeora on intermediate blending colors, where we say that if a polar region meets a temperate region, how should that blend into each other? And Caeora can create kind of a palette that we can use to make that blending work. And again, for the next couple of weeks, this is what we're going to play around with and experiment with.
Okay, this there is so much to unpack here. I don't even know where to start. Right. Okay, let's just go back till you, I think, had the temperate bio or the temperate landmass selected, and you were drawing on top of your landmass to create what looks to be mountainous regions.
Yeah, exactly.
To me.
So what?
Because they're from the same environment.
What Ilya already did, and again, this is also temperate. This is also still in progress. Is when you create a landmass, you create a height map. So when you add on top of that, you are also increasing, like you're multiplying the height. I'm not sure if it should be a pure multiplication or just a factor.
It's an addition, actually.
It's an addition. Sorry, it's an addition. But I'm not sure if it should be an addition, like a one-to-one addition, or just like a factorial addition, to kind of reduce the amount of effect on the height map. But you're building like Lego. You're building on top of the existing height map. And so you're raising stuff, which means that you can shape out mountain ranges, for example.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ilya?
Yeah. The idea here is that, like, for example, if you have a flatland, and then you want to have like sort of mountainous terrain, you want to add this mountainous terrain on top of that flatland. The addition or like somehow the modification of the height map makes more sense actually once you start thinking about it, because it allows you to do the gradients actually. Your flatland can actually transition into the mountainous regions quite smoothly. And then like if for example you decided to add fjords like on the north, you could actually you would actually want actually to have the smooth transition and then the gradient, and then the natural way to generate it would be like just to sort of apply two height maps on top of each other, and then the operation that's happening is like addition. Doesn't have to be addition, frankly. Could be a subtraction and could be like some addition with some modification, or it could be multiplication.
I think that was actually the question that Guy was building up to, is if I can add to it, can I then consequentially also subtract from it? And the answer is yes, but not in that build. That isn't working yet.
No, absolutely. I think this is and chat is just asking a whole bunch of questions which are way above my pay grade, so I'm going to pass them straight through to you. But having said that, now that we're talking sort of climate models and transition zones and things, I recently was on an island that is a volcanic island that has 70 millimeters of rain a year. England has 70 millimeters of rain in an hour in some days, most days, all days basically. But that island has no water on it because the mountains are not high enough to catch clouds to cause them to rain. That's how they explained it to my little brain. This is what we're starting to see here with what you guys are doing, though. And you're saying you sort of slam an Arctic region next to the mountain.
Yeah, careful.
So
I mean, again, we're not a simulation. I think it's really
right, that's the important thing.
Keep in mind that we're not simulating climate here.
Yeah,
Yes.
we are aware that there's like a sort of, how it's called, it's like a
Erosion. Yeah.
Not particular erosion, but like there's a dry shadow, or like it's a rain shadow. It's how it's called,
Yes.
or like which is natural. Like we are aware of it. It's just there's so many things to do, and this as well, that we have to be really particular about what we're going to implement. I for that matter, I would love to do this kind of thing.
Me too, and I think like, just to keep it realistic, we want to have a good first tectonics model that now works with height map and temperate, like climate coloring. We want to hand that out. There's nothing that keeps us from, if people love it and we are done with all the other important stuff that we have finished, to eventually return and do an update that's called the climate update, that then suddenly introduces a much more intricate climate system. We have been chatting about a climate manager where you can actually draw climate zones. But again, keep in mind, we're not simulating, so we don't want to factor in wind currents, humidity, temperature, mountains that create rain shadows. That's like,
well, not yet anyway. I'm gonna bring us back here, because now we're drifting away from what we're showing people to what we would love to add, and people are like, oh, I want it. So here's some questions which hopefully will redirect us. Nicholas Kopp asks, so will this be finished before you stop working on world maps and start working on city maps?
Yes. So the goal is, and I hope, again, there's a bit of an error margin in there, because currently there are things that are a bit, well, intersecting our work progress. But Ilya is now here. Ilya has settled here in Vienna for the next 2 months, which means ideally, by the end of October, when we're going to release this patch, this is finished to a point. Like, we kind of, thank you very much. We're kind of time boxing it now, where we say, okay, we will get as far as possible to get this finished until the end of October, when we want to release this patch finally to you, because we then transition into city map making, which might mean that we take away some of the things that you are seeing right now, because they are just not complete. But generally speaking, I think, Ilya, we're both confident that we can make it work on a basic level until the end of October.
Yeah, pretty much. I like feature-wise, and I also want to do like an optimization pass additionally to what we already have optimized.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Damien the DM says, with all this talk of height maps and actually using them to influence the landmass, will a height map landmass import actually be possible?
Damien, did you and Ilya actually secretly chat about that? So the answer is you have proposed the same idea already. Unfortunately, I cannot show it, but Ilya has done a height map import from Canada, and it rendered the continent of Canada with the correct height map.
Only the Australia, but you were pretty
Was it Australia?
Yeah, because
oh, my bad.
Canada.
Sorry,
Australia, Canada. I mean,
I think Canada was
they're
not continent.
similar.
I really thought it was Canada. Sorry, my bad. It was Australia, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of the idea here is that there's actually a separate step that generates a height map, and then all of a sudden I realized, if I create a separate step and then I just sort of feed it into generation. I don't care. I can take any height map. If you give me a height map of Ireland or UK or whatever, I'll just feed it in and it will just take it. Because it doesn't care whatever height map it is. And so well,
yes,
just
Fantastic. Lovely.
Just to put us back on the ground, I stopped that for now because I said, well, okay, now we're suddenly talking about an height map importer too, and we need to get this one finished first.
True.
So this is actually, it is a concept that has been tested. We have seen that it can work, but it is something that we have put on hold for the future. We will come back to that once we have freed our table a little bit.
Yeah, because we have to do a proper UI, and proper UI takes, unfortunately, even sometimes more time than the actual feature.
Yeah.
There you go. Right. So all that remains, Ilya, thank you so much for coming on to the show tonight.
Yeah.
Really, really appreciate it. And we do wish you and your family the very best of luck for the near future and the far future, of course, as well. And for sharing your passion with us and getting us all excited about all this wonderful stuff that we can do. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to bring in our next guest, who is no stranger to the channel. And I was working on this all afternoon, so I hope you appreciate it. So this is my link to go from Ilya to our next guest. So from Russia with love to His Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah, all right. It was the only way that I could bond these two people together. I will bring in our next guest, and we'll say goodbye to Ilya for now. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. And okay. So whilst the next guest joins us, and I must just say to the next guest, please join us. You know who this person is. They've worked on DEIOS now from the very beginning, and a very good friend of mine, been on several streams with me on all kinds of things, really. The ultimate map maker, I guess you could say. It's none other than Caeora. They're going to join us hopefully soon, and then I can stop talking. And let's just make sure they get that note. And there we are. So all of this stuff going on, and yet we're still managing to make progress. I think that's absolutely fantastic. And all of your thoughts and your questions are being noted. You know that Boaty is there. Damien, I know you're calling for a 2.5-hour stream. Well, I'm not sure. I don't know. We know Caeora. We love the work that Caeora does. And so Caeora is going to be showing us something really cool with Till, obviously. And some interesting announcements going to be coming out as well with regards to that. So I've just realized that I am waiting for Caeora to join. Now, I know this looks very weird, folks, but trust me, if you've ever had a camera in front of your camera, you will know that it's quite difficult to manage and do all this crazy stuff. So our guest is now here. Wow, that does look weird on the stream. I apologize in advance for that. Anyway, let's go straight into it. Enough from me. And of course, we're welcoming Caeora. Caeora, welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to have you with us again.
I was gonna try and hum the James Bond theme as I came on, but I don't think that would work too well.
No one in chat said anything, so it was obviously so bad that everyone was like,
it was an amazing pun. I appreciated it.
well, there we go.
So...
Thank you. That's why you're allowed on the show, you see? That's why you're allowed on the show. And for no other reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
All right. So we are talking about all the new assets that are coming in. Is that right?
Yes, all of them.
All of them, just all of them. Well,
Yes.
not we don't have time to go through all of them, but we do have a lot of them because I was sent the slides. It's like these are the assets we're talking about, and this is slide after slide after slide after slide. So, which slide would you like to start with, particularly?
Now, I would like to make this clear that it is all of them. We're not showing all of them, but we
Okay,
are going
that's
to be
good to know.
talking about all of them. So, I don't know. Pick your favorite, Guy. What one would you like to start with?
This one because I have it loaded up already.
Well, that's great.
So, base cliffs and crags.
So, yes, this is probably the most uninteresting one, but there's cliffs. lovely cliffs. Wonderful, amazing.
They are amazing.
What I wanted to chat to you guys about with regards to cliffs and things is that we know that there was a reworking of the assets in terms of blending with the original textures and things like that. That's obviously been taken into account here.
Yes, this is going to work much better in terms of being able to put these directly on top of textures and different colors, and taking advantage of all the different brushes and things that you can do with DEIOS. Because now you can place these down, and they work anywhere. And don't forget, with DEIOS, you can change all the colors as well. So these work anywhere. You can put these in ice caps things and make them nice and white, or make them volcanic. Darken down the colors and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, these I think will work super well for placing down on any color whatsoever.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah, so I wanted to start with these because I thought these were quite fun, because when we look at the next one, it's the compasses.
Yeah, you're going to have some nice compasses to go along with your map making. I think one of the things that I always find helps with world and region map making is the extra bits.
Yes.
You've got to have the compass, you've got to have the map borders and the names, and sometimes you can have little heraldry bits and little extra bits for map making, a map legend, a map key, all of that stuff to me is a map. So yeah, these are some base compasses for the base set of assets, which I think is quite fun.
Absolutely. Until with that, I'm just going to go back to your lovely faces. Nope, apparently not. It's that one. Till, with regards to the new Z index, now we can actually layer things on top of those compasses, whereas before we would have had.
It might have been that since Caeora, Caeora, when have we been? I think it was in June. We've been talking about the rework of the assets, and I'm pretty sure we're going to touch that point later of why we did the rework and what happened through the rework. We've been talking about that much earlier, but I think the first things you showed in June, I remember that there was a call where we went through and you said, look, this is the new stuff. And there's a lot of, I would say, floating stuff in there as well. That actually kind of triggered me where I said, oh my God, we need to fix the set index, because those assets, a lot of them, will only shine 100% when we actually can allow the user to layer them accordingly to what they need. So yes, the answer was the set index is super helpful, and seeing the artwork that Caeora did was actually kind of pushing the priority on that.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about some of the other packs in a sec, but the way in which they've been designed and the way in which you can now create things heavily depends on the ability to layer. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Let's see what else we've got. This one is also super exciting. I find these amazing. So we've had these before. We've had mountains before, but there was a whole reworking that went into what we had and what we now have. Talk to us about that. What was that about?
So I think it's quite clear to anybody that's, you know, an artist, is that over time, your views on artwork changes. You know, your views on your own style, your own way of drawing things changes. And for me, I realized that DEIOS has been going on for quite a while. The software's been in development for, you know, when was the Kickstarter? Quite a long time ago, but it's, you know, it's been in development for a while. And all throughout that time, my artwork has changed and my style has changed, things like that. Not to mention the fact that the software itself has changed. You know, the way in which things are going to be created, you know, the way in which land masses are going to be drawn, all of that changes. And we actually, you know, as Till says, in June, we got to this point where we're like, this is now a point where things are final. You know, there are some things that will never change. Like, they can change, but these are the things we're going to go with.
I also remembered, sorry, just to interject. I also remember that when we did the initial base pack that you created, I remember that you were very adamant about saying, to listen up, I need to see them and how they look in the software to actually understand if they work with the software and with the general art style. So if you remember, we had a long, and if you as community remember, we have a long history of going in, adjusting the textures, adjusting the colors, adjusting the coastline thickness and the waves around that, because you cannot do assets without knowing how they look in the application. And so you reserve the right to actually review your own artwork once the software is at a specific point in development, to say, okay, now I understand how the artwork should look like.
Yeah. And we got to that point. And so it's like, okay, now this is how it's going to be done. So I think that, you know, and I should have done this, and Till said this to me. I should have done it today. We had a little chat this morning, but I should have done a comparison. So I should have done a comparison of some of the older assets and the new stuff.
Yeah, but just stay on that slide, because I think everyone remembers from what I've been showing in the previous outline mode. Remember the trees that you've seen there, and now look at those beauties.
Absolutely. There's a lot. It seems to be like there's a lot more detail in the artwork. Is that right, or the vibrancy seems to be ramped up? Or
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, like I've learned so much in the last few years that it can't help but, you know, improve. You know, those settlements, in some ways, you know, these base packs that I'm doing, some of them are unique. You know, the new trees and things are stuff that I've never done before. And these settlements are stuff that I've done as sketch assets that are now much bigger in size and scale and with more detail and fully colored, you know. And with DEIOS, you'll be able to change, you know, with DEIOS Wizardry, change the different colors of the rooftops and have different color, you know, stonework and things like that. It's all going to work together beautifully. And the same sort of thought process and design has gone into all of the assets. And I'm really excited to show off some of the other stuff, because you'll be able to work with one of the packs and add it to other packs to create completely unique, you know, locations and things for your world. And I think that was the whole point of the DEIOS Kickstarter that excited a lot of people. And I've now got it done in the assets. So that's super exciting.
Yeah. All right. So those were those, which I mean, they were great. They're great. They are great.
Yeah, they're the base assets. I mean, you've got to have mountains. You've got to have trees. You've got to have settlements. You know, you've got to have all of that good stuff. Yeah.
What did the Caeora ever do for us? Rocks, mountains, trees, etc., etc. And then also these things. So talk to us about artifacts.
So these are some of the smaller packs that we said we would make, or I said I would make, as part of the Kickstarter for, I can't remember if this was a promotional pack for social stretch goals or if it was part of like the backing, like, you know, tiers or whatever. But there are a bunch of unique packs or sort of flavor packs. I don't know what we're really going to call them in the end. I'm calling them unique packs because they're these 25 asset packs, and every single item is a little unique thing, you know, a little unique concept. And I had to go through and think about the design for these over the last. So bear in mind, I've been working on this pretty solidly all through July, August, and now at the end of September. So I've been working on DEIOS stuff almost exclusively for 3 months. And obviously I'll talk about this in a bit, but almost everything is finished. And when I say finished, I mean line art, flat color. Well, I'm working on details. So when I was looking at doing all of these unique packs, and I was doing all of the great stuff that conceptually you want to have in a map, I also have to make that work with the style that I'm working with the design work for making sure that it layers with other things. You know, does it work scale wise? How cool is that going to be, you know, to actually work with and play with and things like that. And some of them, obviously, as you can probably were able to see, are slightly further along than others. But generally speaking, yeah, that one's my current favorite. But they're all supposed to work with all of the other packs. So all of the tentacles and creepy old one, you know, Lovecraftian elements. You know, you can imagine working with even the base pack and this pack to have these sort of like Lovecraftian elements and tentacles coming out of castles and behind mountains, and, you know, layering all of that together to create, you know, the setting of the world that you want to make.
Absolutely. Now, how do you come up with these designs? So if we look at this slide here, we've got a pyramid, we've got a tower, we've got floating cities. We were talking about having floating objects before, which you would want to have floating in front of trees and things like that. Where does this come from?
A lot of reference work. Some of it is obviously stuff that I've sort of had an idea about, and I've drawn it freehand, but a lot of it is research and development, really. Like I have to think to myself, you know, okay, conceptually, evil layers, what does that mean? Like, how many evil layers, you know, can you come up with on your own before you kind of think, oh, you know, I should look at some, you know, some references, or I should, you know, read a book or do all these other things. You'll notice in the evil layers pack, you know, there's Baba Yaga's hut. You know, I would consider that to be a pretty iconic, you know, evil layer. You know, and Grayskull Castle as well. But beyond that, you know, there's some other things that you need to. So what looks good from a map making perspective? What can you add to your maps, and what can you add to other elements of the style and the things that I've created to layer, or to put on a mountain, or to put on a floating island, and to do all these different bits and pieces with. So it's not just about what is an evil layer, but also what is an evil layer that works at this scale that you can see and you can put and you can place and works with other things. It's pretty complicated, but in general, it's all about trying to sort of mesh those together and to find. Some of these packs obviously had way more ideas than I could, you know, draw. Like I could have spent, you know, the rest of my life doing all of these packs for DEIOS, and I will continue to draw packs for DEIOS into the future, not just, you know, the ones I've done for the Kickstarter. But yeah, it is kind of like melding all those together to create a pack in the end.
Is that Pinky that I see floating in that ocean there?
Yes, it is.
Oh, hang on a moment. Hold that thought. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I hope the folks got to see that briefly. Yes, there we go.
But yeah, so you know, and some of the unique packs work together. The Wonder pack that you just saw works with the setting pack for Wondrous Empires. So all the coloring in that pack is based on the coloring for Wondrous Empires, which is one of the settings.
But just to be clear, right? that's a good example of where you say, okay, the base coloring is done, but this isn't a finished pack, right?
No, that's not finished. So all the base packs that you saw earlier, they're all finished. And there are a few settings that are currently finished, but the everything else is flat colored. Line art, flat color, ready for detail. So not everything is done, but it's getting there. It's pretty,
Absolutely. Makes sense. A few questions quickly before we go on to we still got before we go into the last collection to share with everybody tonight. So much cool stuff. It's insane. Lord God asks, Caeora, are there assets that you'd love to see in the app that haven't been approached yet?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, while I was building this, there were several key areas that I felt like I would personally do before anything else that I want to work on for like world map creation. And the first one that we didn't really do any of this kind of stuff. I can't remember if it was a choice for a setting in the DEIOS Kickstarter, but I think a big gap that you'll see in a bit after we go through all the settings are Asian style map making assets. And I think that when I was looking at a lot of references and looking for architectural styles and trying to create all these different buildings and things for creating maps, I felt like that was probably one of the biggest settings collection of assets that I would really like to do. Yeah.
There we go. All right. Well, it's something that we can look forward to in the future, I'm sure. As you said, you're going to be creating assets for forever, so it gives you some time to work work towards that. Having drawn the assets, have you gained insight into the app that's actually aided the development team?
Oh yes. Yeah. So I remember I must say Caeora can be very, very persuasive when it comes to the art style. And we had a lot of conversations, especially when it came down to the coastline and the river, the wave effects. And I think working so close with Caeora on that was extremely helpful to actually establish the art style. I think the one thing that I will probably even hear when I go to bed is Caeora being in my head saying, every bit has to have the same style to actually be good looking. So when we work on assets, we have to understand that the colors, the assets, the line arts, and everything else is in sync. And that is super important because where we are getting now is actually our attempt to get as close as possible to that. And sorry, now I've stolen your stage. You can now answer the question that was actually brought to you.
No, that's fair. That answers the question. There's no more to say about that. Yeah, it's just the way it goes. You know, when I make the assets and until you know that sort of relationship between the software and the creation of assets is it just leads to that kind of discussion where one influences the other.
I absolutely agree. I think that makes perfect sense as well. All right, one more asset pack to go through, or at least one more collection of asset packs to go through. And these, I think, are my favorites, just because there's so much going on here. So let's start with this one, The Age of Sail. The Age of Sail. What inspiration did you turn to? Well, we can see a lot of inspiration on some of those things, but in terms of your ships and things, what did you look to there?
Sea of Thieves. Yeah, mostly. Yeah, Age of Sail for me is a little bit like Sea of Thieves. You know, you gotta have your sort of your Aztec, Mayan, beautiful sort of massive, you know, ancient South American pyramids alongside sort of Spanish conquistador, you know, style port cities and loads of ships, of course. And you'll notice that this pack, unlike the tree pack, contains quite a lot of what I would consider, you know, jungle trees. You know, these are going to contain some really big, you know, quite specific sort of jungle palms and fronds and loads of different kinds of trees to really flesh out a jungle. So So yeah, this pack is pretty varied, and I love the fact that, you know, obviously you've got a few little unique things in there.
Can I ask a question while you talk about unique things?
Sure.
I wanted to ask you that the last time, then we got carried away. Is that a Fire Nation ship?
I don't know what you mean.
I don't know what I mean either, but I'm like, I love it.
So there are cultural cultural assets from different TV shows and things that I have included in many of these packs. You'll be able to spot a few more as we're going through. But the setting packs specifically sort of have themes. So yes, that is from something like that. Yeah, and then this is one that's done. This is a setting pack that's done. The Cyberpunk set. This was really fun because I think that a lot of the setting stuff that I've been making doesn't really exist anywhere else in terms of creating, you know, region, world, map level, you know, stuff. But for me, this was really cool in terms of, you know, getting all that kind of like futuristic stuff and trying to blend all of that kind of that color work, you know, that dark cyberpunk style. It's so different to the way I normally draw things that it was it was good fun. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is really interesting. When I was making the assets, the Dwarven pack was supposed to be a unique pack with only 25 assets. And instead, what I decided to do was to give it the same treatment as a setting pack. And I'm not sure if you can zoom in, Guy, but all of the packs, and you'll see it on the Settlement pack, you'll see it on the Dwarven pack, the Elven pack, the Orcish pack, all of the setting stuff, they all consist of individual items. And each one of those items can be put together to create the kinds of locations that exist in your world, right? So if you look at the Dwarven pack, you'll see at the top there, you've got two little Dwarven villages, or what you would sort of, you know, two little collections. And those are made up of the individual buildings that exist as individual things just below them. And that is the same principle of design across every single setting pack and the base pack. So what you can do is you can take elements from any pack that you like, layer them together to create the cities and the locations that exist in your world. So if you have a Dwarven city that's half Dwarven, half human, you put those assets together. You have Elven and Dwarven and human things all combined together into a kind of multicultural city that exists in your world. Put them all together. You know, have an Elven tower in the background, have a Dwarven smithy, you know, have all these elements together to create the things that you really want to make. And so the Elven, Dwarven, and Orcish packs were originally supposed to be 25 unique packs. I decided to give them a little bit more of a special treatment and do the individual things there for them.
Fantastic. I mean, that idea of combining them, I think, is just wonderful. And as you say, it goes across all of the themes I can see here, the wall components, so you can build your high fantasy setting and things like that. There's those floating mountains that you were talking about as well, Till, which you would want to place above a mountain. And as Caeora just said, if you pay attention to it, you will see that they are built in a way or designed in a way that you can then stack a city on top of it, for example.
Yeah, so in the bottom left of that image, I haven't combined as many as I ultimately wanted to, but that is exactly what you do. You take the floating island, you put whatever kind of collection of you know, city stuff that you want on that island to create the floating island that you want in your world.
That's incredible versatility. Absolutely incredible. This is another one that I really like, the Lost Civilization. I saw this and I went, oh, yes. Oh, that's lovely.
You got to have a bunch of dinosaurs in your world, I think. I think a lot of low-tech settings will want a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, my inner nerd is going, okay, good. Those are all Cretaceous. That's fine. That's fine. They can all exist on the same map at the same time. We don't have any Jurassic or earlier. That's fine. That's fine. Wait, we suddenly have
Wait,
mammoths.
Ice
Oh my
Age
god!
creatures.
No!
Mammoths don't exist in my world alongside dinosaurs.
That's lovely.
Unless you play Pathfinder, which they do.
So people are just loving this. Absolutely loving these new assets. The orcish assets I thought were really awesome.
Yeah, there's a funny combination one in there. There's actually a dwarven asset in there that's been taken over by orcs. That has an orc little symbol over the top of the archway and a banner on top. And that's what I mean. Like, if you could take some of the orcish elements and you can put them over things and you can create, the element that you want to create.
Super cool. Super Shadow Lord. I mean, as you go through each slide, you're like, oh, there's more, and it's even cool. Your tangle vines, your thorn vines, and things. So, all right. So a lot of people are looking at this and they're going, yes, this is all very beautiful. It's all very lovely, and it's just mind blowing. And I mean, the space stuff is. This is not stuff that you see in other map making software, at least not initially anyway, and you can sort of add them in as packs and things. But oftentimes those packs don't have the same style across them all, and I think that's something that is done really, really, really well. Borg Sphere versus Death Star, it's the ultimate question.
This is actually my favorite pack of all the setting stuff that I've done, because it contains 3 different factions of the Underdark.
Right.
It contains the Dwerga or Dark Iron Dwarves.
Right.
And then it contains Drow at the top.
Right.
And in the bottom right, it contains Mind Flayers.
Well, there you go. 3 for 1.
Well, 4 if you take in the Myconoids, which are kind of the mushroom people.
The mushroom people.
Yeah. Well, they don't. I should have made some little mushroom cities, but yeah.
I mean, you've got to leave something for us to actually have to make.
To do later, right? Can't sort of create assets and push myself out of my own job. But yeah, that one I love because it contains such a varied, sort of cultural clash
here as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then Wondrous Empires.
Yeah, all the classics. You got to have some Greek and. This one was this contains 4 different cultural elements, which is obviously Egyptian, Greek, Babylonian, and I would say very early sort of maybe Assyrian, slightly Arabic,
right,
sort of style stuff at the top left there.
Yeah. And all the statues and things that go with it, or colossi roaming around next to all of the monsters. So
yeah.
And so many different ship options as well. I think this is really, really awesome. So now that we've looked at all of the pretty things, there's some tough questions that I have for both of you. Let's see, where are we? I have those tough questions right here. Right now, these are all beautiful. But when are we going to get to play with them?
So, to be clear about what we just looked at, those assets constitute the entirety of the Kickstarter ideas or promises or whatever we decide, what we said we would do for the Kickstarter in terms of asset creation. That's what you just looked at. It constitutes between 2,500, 3,000 assets. It's a lot of assets. And
it's a lot of assets.
Yeah, it's a big chunk. Now, even though a lot of these are nearing completion or are complete, the cyberpunk setting is fully colored, doesn't necessarily mean that it's ready to go into DEIOS straight away. There are still some things to work out. DEIOS is doing some clever stuff in terms of like selecting layers and different colors and doing all this stuff. It's pretty complicated to get everything working in that regard and splitting everything up, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, we also keep in mind, when you hand them over to us, we need to put them into our databases, label them, make them searchable, do the collections and stuff like that. So being finished drawing means being ready for us to take over and implement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So And also, I'm sorry to say that, Caeora, but you have to be precise. This is all the assets for world maps. There are still
Yes,
city.
well, there are still things to do in terms of city map creation. Obviously, I'm not going to be creating quite as many assets for city map creation as this, because I consider this to be like the big chunk. But there are still obviously some city map sort of packs to go.
So the idea is that the base settings that we have seen, not everything. Everything is not going to be finished by the end of October, but by the end of October, the base settings are being finished and will be part of the patch that we've been talking about the whole evening.
Yes,
But then, Caeora and I talked about how we're going to make the rest of them available, and we are going to work on the city map editor for quite some time to actually have something to give to you to play with. And to bridge that time, we decided that this gives Caeora enough time to actually finish the asset packs that are still in the works and have a regular update to our software where we hand out packs on a regular basis. So they're not all being dished out at once, because A, Caeora needs to finish them, B, we need to integrate them, and C, that would create a weird hiatus for you while we are working on the city map editor. So we said, okay, instead, we will give out a big chunk in October that allows you to do the base assets, and then over the course of a few months, we will roll out more and more of those packs through regular updates.
Makes absolute sense. Are we going to see a revised color palette option from you, Caeora, in terms of updating our color palettes?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not,
right.
It's not just you, Caeora. We will sit together and we will look at the color palettes to make sure that they actually fit the new assets. Because as you have seen, the mountains went from brownish to grayish. So some, probably not all color palettes, but some need to be just revised and updated.
Would you like to see my layer of color palettes that contains over 200 colors in Photoshop right now? Yeah. So that'll happen.
That will happen. That will happen. Okay. We also have heard rumors, so confirm or deny as you so choose. These assets are going to be rolling out over quite a period over the next couple months as we move forward. Are they going to be made available in another way?
I have no idea where you heard
DEIOS
that. Cut the stream.
officially?
That's not cool. Cut it. No. I think for me, one of the reasons that my reasoning for doing all these assets right now is twofold. A, the software is a point where they can be made. And B, I wanted to do everything in one go in order to, have a cohesive style. But also in the back of my mind, I'm also like, the more assets that I create, the better the user is going to be. Like the more assets you have for map making, it's just nice to have that huge selection of things, because let's be honest, like the whole sort of point of DEIOS has always been to create this program that you can take anything and make your imagination. You make your settings, you make your world. It's a map making tool. It's a world map making tool. And all these worlds are really different and varied and all that kind of stuff. So me and Till, we have agreed that what's going to happen with the assets is that, although obviously if you're a backer for the Kickstarter, as the assets get released on the schedule, I think it's probably going to be a monthly schedule. Like every single month, at the end of the month, you'll get access to one of the new setting packs as they're released. Nice and consistent. They'll also be released by me as PNG files, flat. They won't be, all the magic stuff that you get in DEIOS, but you will get access to those things, as PNGs through Caeora.com or from me. The exact details still going to a little bit wibbly, but mainly through me, and that's how it's going to work. And I think there are, I mean, Till, there's a few other sort of specifics that I think you wrote down when we had our chat that you can talk through. But generally speaking, what we're going to be doing is, as the assets are released through DEIOS, they're also going to be released through me, so in other places for you to actually use or do things with in sort of multiple ways, because we want to give people the things that they want to use in order to make their maps, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So to get into the conversation here from why we had the discussion in the first place was we got a lot of questions about, do we actually get those assets available only through DEIOS, or since they're done, can we get other access to those assets as well if you want to use them in some other way or means? And we had the discussion and we said, okay, well, why not? You've done the work. Also, those assets are not DEIOS exclusive in a way that we've always said that at some point you can sell them yourself. However, the way that those assets got created was through the support of our BackerKit supporters. So what we agreed to was that once an asset pack gets released, it gets released to DEIOS. It also gets released as the PNG files on Caeora.com. But every backer to the Kickstarter campaign, and I must be precise on that, that is every backer of the Kickstarter campaign, and only those, they will get a code where they can get those packs for free. Everyone else might need to buy them at Caeora.com. However, you as a Kickstarter backer to DEIOS, you have been supporting the creations of those asset packs, and therefore you get a code that will get you those PNG files for free. And Caeora and I will, over the next couple of weeks, work on the details on how we can put that code over to Caeora.com so it works, and how we can send it out. We will most likely do this either through our account manager or through the digital rewards from BackerKit. So you can also, you not only get the pack in DEIOS to work with, but you also can download the PNGs from Caeora.com for free if you have been a backer, or you can purchase them if you're not a backer.
Yeah. So to be clear, it's optional. Like you're getting the stuff in DEIOS, you're also getting the things if you want them.
Through Chaos. All right. I think it's fair to say, watch social media and the newsletters and the updates. And of course, in our next stream in October, we'll have more clarity on that whole thing. I think that's really cool. I think that's super cool that we get to potentially play around with them. The last question that I have just before we bring this whole show to an end, the maps that we've made thus far with the assets that we had, are those going to... Oh, all right.
Yes. So not only because the artist wants to see the new assets and the new style, but also because technology. The old assets, we do not replace them. We have a different means of importing them through, I've talked about that through our asset distribution system. So unfortunately, this means that once the new patch hits, and we will do the according warning to all of you, you will have to export your maps and save them if you want to keep them, because we will have to deprecate old maps. There's a completely new Tectonics system in there. There's a river system working in there. There's a bunch of new assets in there. Making this backwards compatible with old maps would probably take another month or two to get this actually working, program-wise and conceptually. So we said, okay, the asset style has been decided, the asset packs have been produced, the world map editor is getting in the final phase. This is the one time where we're going to actually wipe and say, okay, old maps are not going to be usable anymore. So make sure that you export your maps beforehand, and save those images so that you can at least use them as the blueprints that you can put on into DEIOS and then just add to it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. All right, there's one more question that's come through. The question is, will we get some generic assets as well, like dots or crosses, things that we can add?
Yeah, I think that would be fun. I think that I swear I could make those, but I swear somebody else was working with the DEIOS Kickstarter to produce some generic stuff. But yeah, that would be cool. I think generally speaking,
that's Fonticon, the icon library, Caeora. And I'm not sure if she has dots and X's, but she has a lot of symbols, like symbol fonts, that you can use, that will find its way into DEIOS eventually.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Caeora, lovely as always to have you on the show and to gain some insight and sometimes some very harsh responses. But that's okay. Things change. It is what it is. Thank you so much. People can find you and your marvelous work where?
Oh, I don't know. Just sort of look for maps online.
Look for maps online. All right. Yes, Caeora.com, in case it wasn't obvious from the stream. So yes, thank you so much for being here and spending your time with us and giving us.
Well,
some
thank you very
insight
much for having me, guys.
This awesome stuff. In which case, then maybe.
Oh wait! Happy joint birthday tomorrow.
Oh yes, that's right. It's both of our birthdays.
We
tomorrow.
have our birth. We share a birthday tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah. So happy birthday! You shouldn't congratulate the day before, but I would still do it. Happy birthday! I might.
If one doesn't do it the day before, one forgets until months after, and then you're like, oh well, now it's too late. Then they still survive. So all right. No, well, marvelous. There we go. Yes. So that's it for DEIOS in a very long mapping it out. We've never done one this long before, nearly 3 hours. Till, thank you for joining us as well. And from me, all I have to say is we'll be back again next month at the end of October. No, and at the beginning of November. Is that right? Beginning of November. There's not an end of October stream. It's beginning
I haven't
of November.
thought about that yet. But I feel like it would be weird to have a mapping it out and then a week after the anniversary stream. So probably it's going to be at the beginning of November.
There we go. All right. Well, we'll keep you posted on that one as well. So lots of things to be posted about. You should really join the newsletter. I think this is a good thing to join.
Join the newsletter. Join our Discord. There you will find all the information. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram. Oh my God, and all the other stuff that's around there.
Try stalking Till. You know, he lives in Austria, I believe. So
yes, he collects Russians. So yes, until next time we see you, we wish you all the very happiest of
map making.
Yes. All right. He always does it. He always does it.
No, I think I've encouraged Till.